Mariana Benson, a 35-year-old teacher, was the heart of her neighborhood in the small town of Birchwood. As one of the few black residents in a mostly white town, she had learned to face challenges with kindness and determination. Her childhood home had been a place filled with warmth, and she carried that same spirit into her own house on Cedar Lane. The scent of freshly baked cookies often filled the air, and laughter rang out as she worked with students or spoke with neighbors. But not all her neighbors were welcoming. Richard Mathers, a retired factory worker in his late 60s, lived next door. He was known for being grumpy and stuck in his ways. He had never hidden his disapproval of having Mariana as a neighbor. Their interactions were cold, just a nod or a grumbled complaint about noise from the children visiting her for tutoring. Mariana had tried to be friendly, sending him cookies and inviting him to community events, but he always refused. One incident had hurt Mariana deeply. Richard had called the police on a group of her students, claiming they looked suspicious. Nothing came of the complaint, but it left Mariana feeling sad and frustrated. Still, she believed in kindness and decided to try again. On a sunny Saturday morning, she baked a fresh batch of snickerdoodle cookies. She carefully placed them on a plate, tied a ribbon around them, and walked to Richard's door. Her heart fluttered nervously as she rehearsed what she might say. Richard opened the door with a frown, his eyes shifting from Mariana to the plate of cookies. "Why?" he asked bluntly. Mariana hesitated but then smiled. "I just wanted to start fresh. Maybe get to know each other better. These cookies are a peace offering." Richard hesitated before taking the plate. "I'll try them later," he muttered before shutting the door. Mariana walked back to her house with mixed feelings. It wasn't much, but it was a step. 15 minutes later, there was a knock at her door. Mariana was shocked to see 2 police officers standing on her porch. "Ma'am," one officer said, "Mr. Mathers called us. He claims you might have tampered with the cookies." Mariana's heart sank. "Tampered? They're just cookies. I would never do something like that." The officers seemed sympathetic, but explained that they had to investigate. Mariana invited them inside, showing them the ingredients she had used and even offering them a cookie. The officers left soon after, assuring her they didn't believe Richard's claim, but had to file a report. After they left, Mariana sat in her kitchen, feeling a mixture of sadness and anger. She had tried so hard to be a good neighbor, but this was a slap in the face. For years, she had ignored Richard's coldness, but this accusation made her realize she couldn't stay silent anymore. The next day, Mariana filed a formal complaint against Richard for harassment and false accusations. Her decision caused a stir in the community. Some people supported her, while others said she was overreacting. Her students, however, stood by her. They organized a demonstration outside the school, holding signs that read, "No place for hate and justice for Miss Benson." The story spread quickly, and soon the local news covered it. Conversations about racial bias in Birchwood began to surface. Many residents had never considered how subtle racism existed in their town. Mariana was invited to speak at the next town council meeting. Standing before the crowd, she took a deep breath. "This isn't just about me," she said. "It's about creating a community where everyone feels welcome. We have to face these biases if we want to grow." Her words resonated with many. An elderly woman, Mrs. Carter, stood up. "I've seen Richard's behavior for years," she admitted, "and I turned a blind eye, but no more. It's time we face this together." The council proposed new measures to address racial bias, including diversity training and the creation of a community relations board. The town was divided. Some welcomed the change, while others resisted it. Mariana continued to receive both support and whispers behind her back at the grocery store. But her students never wavered. They spread awareness through social media and local events. Then, something unexpected happened. Richard started nodding at Mariana when they crossed paths. One evening, she found a store-bought cookie on her porch with a note, "I'm sorry. Richard." Mariana stared at the note for a long time. Was this a real apology? She decided to try again. The next day, she baked another batch of cookies and knocked on Richard's door. He opened it, looking uncertain. "I got your note," Mariana said. "Thank you. Let's talk." What followed were small, but meaningful conversations. Richard admitted that he had carried prejudices for most of his life, shaped by his upbringing. Mariana shared her own experiences, not to shame him, but to help him understand. Slowly, their talks became less tense and more open. Richard even asked for book recommendations to learn more about racism. One day, he surprised Mariana by attending a diversity workshop. He sat quietly in the back, listening intently. Their growing friendship became a symbol of change in Birchwood. Richard started attending community events and even joined the Community Relations Board. Mariana's students continued their activism, organizing cultural festivals and school discussions about inclusion. A year later, Mariana and Richard stood side by side at Birchwood's first town-wide cultural festival. As they watched people of all backgrounds mingle, Richard turned to her. "You know," he said, "I never thought I'd see Birchwood like this." He paused. "You changed this town, Mariana." Mariana smiled. "No, Richard. We changed it together." The journey hadn't been perfect, and there was still work to do. But Birchwood had become a town where change was possible. What started as a simple plate of cookies had sparked something bigger. Proof that kindness, patience, and understanding could bring people together. As Birchwood's story spread, other towns took notice. Mariana was invited to speak at a regional conference about fostering inclusion in small communities. Inspired by her efforts, other towns started their own initiatives. Her students connected with young activists in different schools, sharing ideas and resources. Even Richard, once the most resistant to change, became a voice for progress. At one event, he spoke about his transformation. "I'm proof that it's never too late to change," he said, "and to help others do the same." Months later, Mariana sat on her porch, watching the sunset. The Community Relations Board had grown, and Birchwood's Cultural Festival had become an annual tradition. Richard had become one of her closest friends, and together, they hosted a monthly book club focused on diversity. One evening, she received a text from a former student now in college. "Miss Benson, your lesson stuck with me. I'm starting a diversity club here on campus. Thank you for showing us what's possible." Smiling, Mariana put down her phone and looked out over her neighborhood. Change wasn't always easy, but it was worth it. And sometimes, it started with something as simple as a plate of cookies.